In this week's drive, we tangle tyres in Chicago, take a mid-season look at Formula One, race with no gears and no brakes, and see how Ferrari can even control the weather. All this and more in this week's Drive. The touring car race in the southern German city of Nuremberg was delayed until after the Soccer World Cup, and a crowd of 80,000 at the Norisring track saw arguably the best race in the history of DTM. Uwe Alsen took the lead early on, but lost any hope of a win when he was given a stop-go penalty for creeping at the start. On the fourth lap, Thomas Jaeger and Joe Winkelhock had a coming together as they scrapped for sixth place. Winkelhock continued, but Jaeger was out. Further up the field, a battle was brewing between Laurent Aiello's Audi TT and Bernd Schneider's Mercedes CLK. Aiello became a front-runner after a pit stop. By the time Schneider rejoined the track after his own stop, the Audi was right on his tail. On lap 23, Aiello passed Schneider to take the lead, but the German countered immediately. Aiello repeated the move on lap 27 and was again passed by Schneider. Despite a string of nose-to-tail laps and brushes with the wall, the Frenchman remained in second position until the final 44th lap, when he pulled off an amazing overtaking manoeuvre on the very last corner of the race. As Schneider slowed for the hairpin, Aiello took a very wide line, held off the brakes for as long as he dared, and apexed late to slide his TT beneath the Mercedes and steal victory from the German. Aiello's teammate and pole sitter Matthias Ekstrom was unable to make up for a slow pit stop and came third.
When you drive against a driver like Bernd, it's always a pleasure, you know. It was very fair. I try my best to be fair and to have a good show for the public without taking any risk. I think Bernd is also happy about this, and if we could have this sort of race every weekend, it could be perfect.
After 5 rounds, Aiello leads the title with over double the points of Jean Alesi in a Mercedes-Benz. We cross to Chicago in the US now for the 7th of 20 rounds of the Championship Auto Racing Teams, or CART series. The race got off to a bad start with a crash at the first turn between last year's winner Kenny Brack and Jimmy Vasser, both cars out before they completed a single lap. Well back in the pack, the two touched wheels and it was straight to the scene of the accident. All 4 of CART's Brazilian drivers, Cristiano de Mata, Bruno Junqueira, Tony Kanaan and Christian Fittipaldi, along with former CART Series regular Roberto Moreno, celebrated Brazil's soccer win by getting a haircut to match their countryman Ronaldo. Fittipaldi's race came to a scary end when he lost a wheel. Someone in his team will be doing nothing else but fitting wheels for the rest of his life. That or looking for a new job. Unbelievably, it happened again minutes later to Scott Dixon, although he never actually reached the track. Make that 2 people who'll be fitting wheels forevermore. Alex Tagliani, who started second, took over the lead after the first stops, only to suffer a multitude of problems, including this run-in with Paul Tracy late in the race. Cristiano de Mata started the 250th and final lap with a clear lead over Bruno Junqueira. Extreme heat caused several drivers to become dehydrated, including Junqueira, who skipped the post-race press conference to recover. De Mata, driving a Toyota Lola, became the first driver to win 3 straight kart races since Colombia's Juan Pablo Montoya in 1999, and he has a 25-point lead over compatriot Junqueira in the series standings. This week we take a long look at Formula One. Ferrari and Michael Schumacher are leading the title chase by a country mile, leaving all the other teams to play catch-up. Closest is the BMW Williams pair of Michael's brother Ralph and Colombian Juan Pablo Montoya.
I think I'm doing a better job than what I did last year. I understand better team, I became a better person, a better driver, and that's the way it works. You know, every year you learn something new.
Montoya has yet to match Ralph by winning a race this season. They banged wheels at the Nürburgring as the Germans squeezed past on the first corner, but they're getting on better this year, and now the focus is on the car.
Tires is a big issue. I think the car is a bit in the car as well, but I think main issue is getting more consistent tires. I think we've got a really quick tire, and not so Mission is doing a bad job, because they are doing a good job. They're pushing the limits, and sometimes they're going a bit too far, but that's part of it.
The drivers use track simulators where possible, and Ralph seems to have fun as well as practice. Montoya says the team needs to improve if they are to win, but they are trying.
I don't think Williams was ever lucky of winning. I think Williams was winning because they were doing the best job. I think something's got to be very clear. It's the same way why Ferrari is winning at the moment, because they're doing the best job compared with everybody else. It's not like Williams is doing a bad job, because we're second off at the moment there, but they're maximizing more the things out of us. But I think Williams know they need to step their game, and we're doing that at the moment.
Ralph said that simulators can't and won't replace the knowledge gained from real racing.
Every time that the FAI or the drivers have asked for a change, it has been put into action and implemented. But the changes haven't always worked out right. Unfortunately, it often turns out that the level of knowledge only really improves after accidents. It's fairly clear that you can only really learn in this sense from accidents. There are some things that you just can't simulate.
Eddie Jordan believes the idea of Playboy racing drivers just having fun is a myth.
Racing now at the Grand Prix takes up so much of the day, from early in the morning, 6 o'clock, to maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night. So there's not really any social life. It's a very hard graft.
Eddie restructured his team earlier this year to maximise efficiency, and he's bullish about the future of Formula One. Jordan believes people will not turn away from Formula One because of Schumacher and Ferrari's domination of the sport.
Michael Schumacher has shown such dominance right from the beginning of this season. Ferrari car is probably better than it's been ever before, so you see a huge influence on his own technical ability inside the team. And I think we should just enjoy him, because he is the world's best driver, and while he's around, I think for sure he will be the champion.
Rubens Barrichello, Michael and Ralf Schumacher have all driven for Jordan. Is Takuma Sato next for fame? Another team used to winning but going through a lean period is McLaren Mercedes, although David Coulthard did break the Ferrari clean sweep with a win at home in Monaco and a second in Canada. McLaren Mercedes and Williams BMW seem destined to battle it out for second place in the Manufacturers' Championship.
We had a reasonable test a few weeks ago. Ferrari, unfortunately, as has been the norm this year, we're setting the pace, so we don't expect a big difference in overall performance relative to them. But it is a track that I believe we can finish in the podium in. And given our current performance, then that would be a positive result.
Obviously, there can be only one winner, although some would wish the wins were spread around a little more evenly. Despite his sparse pickings recently, Coulthard's motivation is still high.
On the back of the performances we've had recently, obviously winning in Monaco, second in Canada, and what should have been a third in Nürburgring, I feel pretty positive. I feel strong in myself and the way I'm driving and the way I'm working with the team.
McLaren and Williams have won the World Formula One title several times each, with Mika Häkkinen winning twice while teamed with Coulthard at McLaren. The 31-year-old Scotsman is hoping the pendulum of success swings back during his time with the team. Meanwhile, the seemingly invincible Ferrari team have been working hard to make sure they don't lose their hard-won advantage. It's worth remembering that Ferrari went a long time between drinks too. They were without a title between 1979 and 2000, between Jody Scheckter and Schumacher. Ferrari spends millions of dollars on research and development each year at their headquarters in Maranello in Italy. An outsider might be forgiven for thinking that the highest profile team in Formula One spares no cost and that they have everything but the kitchen sink. And now that's almost right. Luca Badour is the team's test driver, the foot soldier who clocks up many more development miles than the team's more familiar race faces. He will drive all the very latest developments at the team's private test track, Fiorano, a few minutes walk away from the factory. Only once the developments have proven themselves in Luca's hands will Michael and Rubens get to try them in the heat of competition. But a recent development was made to the track itself, rather than the screaming blood-red racing cars. In an unusually dry Italian summer, Ferrari has turned on the waterworks this year, installing a high-pressure sprinkler system. They'll be able to test their cars in wet conditions to make sure they're ready for anything the weather can throw at them on race day. Wet conditions add a new dimension to Grand Prix racing, according to Ferrari's technical director, Ross Brawn.
We enjoy the wet. There's always a bit more uncertainty about the wet. You know, maybe you spin or you get involved in someone else's accident. So there's a little bit more uncertainty about the wet, but there's also a lot more opportunity with strategy, with all sorts of things. And both our drivers are very, very good in the wet. So if it were a wet race, we'd enjoy that. You never truly relax. If we're fortunate enough to win the championship early this year, if we're fortunate enough to win it full stop, but if we're fortunate enough to win it early, then you can approach the races later in the season a slightly more open way. You don't have the pressure of the championship. But that happened to us last year, and I thought the last 4 races would be quite relaxed, but they weren't. You know, we really wanted to win those races, and you know, all the tension and excitement that comes from wanting to win the race is still there. So even though the championships were finished, there was a lot of competitive tension at the last few races last year, and I'm sure it'll be the same this year.
This year has been a dry one. The British Grand Prix saw some showers early on, but all the previous races were dry. Ferrari may be able to extend their advantage even more if the weather breaks later in the year. This is where Honda cars are built in the UK, and 2 high-profile Honda employees recently spent a day on the production line. The men and women of the huge Swindon plant have just produced their 500,000th Honda Civic. And to help them on their way to 1 million are 2 special guests who know Honda's technical capability probably better than anyone else, though not necessarily the mild-mannered Civic. Having made a nightmarish start to the Formula One season, British American Racing, or BAR, are trying to stay positive. In the first 7 events of the year, Olivier Panis and Jacques Villeneuve failed to crack the top 6, although they redeemed themselves with 4th and 5th places at Silverstone, making BAR the last team to earn any points. So it's been a case of back to basics for the 2, meaning a trip to carmaker Honda's shop floor.
Okay, be working online with us and helping us out. Obviously, it's an honour and a privilege for myself and the team to have you working with us, and I hope you have a good day with us. Enjoy it as much as we enjoy having you here today.
So it's back to basics for the multi-millionaire drivers, and a taste of what it is like earning a more modest living on the factory floor. To put it simply, before Silverstone, Villeneuve had enjoyed about as much success on the track this season as he did fitting up Civics. That is, very little. And that's from a man who was world champion with Williams just 5 years ago. Parnas fared better fixing up the family saloons.
Jen's just there.
But for one of the most experienced men left in Formula One, Villeneuve has been hugely disappointing in his normal day job. And up until the British Grand Prix, Parnas hadn't finished a single race this year. But despite their present poor form, the Frenchman and the French Canadian are still heroes to the Honda workers and chat freely with their colleagues for a day.
I mean, I have a big passion for motor racing, and I started in the go-kart, in the karting, for 8 years. And after that, I started the French school, Elf Willfield in France.
This bit here is...
Later, Parnas took a car out onto the test track, but at a slightly more sedate pace than he normally does.
What we call Belgian cobblestones along here. Detect any noise from underneath the body of the car.
Yeah, it's been a very, very difficult season. I had said before the start of the season, even in winter, that I didn't have any expectation. I was just wanting to wait, and I was hoping to be surprised. And sadly, I haven't been surprised, or if I've been surprised, it's in the wrong direction. So yeah, it's been a very difficult season.
Recently, Villeneuve said that if things didn't improve at BAR, he'd look at joining a more competitive team. However, several high-profile team managers suggested that he's not on their dream teams, and he's too expensive. Jacques is believed to be the second highest-paid driver in Formula One. Parnas has had little success, with a sole victory to his name at Monaco in 1996, while driving for the now-defunct Honda-powered Ligier team. To Stockholm in Sweden now for the 5th of 10 rounds of the Speedway World Championship. Fans packed the 15,000-seater Olympic Stadium to see local hero Tony Rickardsson in action. Reigning and 4 times world champ, Rickardsson has had a string of bad results and was looking to get back on form at his home event. And winning the early heat was a good start. Australian Ryan Sullivan, who led the championship going into the Swedish round after 2 wins in the UK and Slovenia, was lucky to walk away from this last corner crash. Having scored 2 heat wins and a second so far, crashing out put Ryan out of contention for the night, finishing 7th overall and earning just 11 points. In the first semi-final, American Greg Hancock and the British-based Czech 21-year-old Lukas Drummel, in his first ever Grand Prix final, made it through, while Ryan Sullivan, who was going for a record 3rd consecutive Grand Prix win, was knocked out after a poor start and the effects of his heavy crash earlier on. Hancock scored his best result of the year, going on to claim 3rd place overall and picking up 18 points. Moving to 10th place in the overall standings, just 1 point behind his countryman, Billy Hamill. The second semi was dominated by Rickardsson, with Australian Jason Crump in 2nd place. Mikael Karlsson crashed out and the race was stopped, but fortunately the Swede walked away. When it was restarted, Crump assumed control from the start and went through with Rickardsson, while Australian Lee Adams went out in 3rd place. A warm night in Sweden. What would motorsport be without grid girls? Starting from gate 2, the 31-year-old local star dominated the final heat. Tony Rickardsson delighted the fans, winning his 10th Grand Prix, beating Drummel into 2nd. Crump was 3rd, with Hancock 4th. The world champion now leads the title chase by 2 points from Sullivan, with half the season gone. Polish rider Tomasz Golob now trails in the title, 25 points behind the Swede and just 1 point ahead of Crump. We stay in Sweden for the 8th of 13 rounds in the World Motocross Series and start with the 500cc Big Bangers. As in the past couple of events, it was Joel Smets and Stefan Everts fighting out the lead. Cedric Malotti had his moment of fame, eventually crashing after fighting the results of a bad landing. Monique Berfoots couldn't get close to the leaders and had a lonely race in 3rd. Everts, reigning champ and factory Yamaha rider, took the lead on the first lap from his Belgian rival and had to fight off the KTM rider for the entire closely fought race. Smets tried everything to pass and just one slip would have lost the race, but the triple champ was too fast and too composed and Smets had to be content with second.
I must say he made a very sportive race. He tried really hard, but it was not possible to pass. I keep the insides really clean and yeah, also congratulations to Joel. Thanks to him we had such a great race.
In the 250s we ride with Australian Andrew McFarlane as Michael Pichon finds his way past. Next, the Kawasaki rider fell prey to Yamaha's Frédéric Bollet of France and Kiwi Joshua Coppens on a Honda. The New Zealander recently tested positive for more than 6 times the limit for the stimulant pseudoephedrine. McFarlane retired his Kawasaki with mechanical problems in the latter half of the race. Unchallenged, Pichon cruised to his 21st victory and a 30-point lead in the championship ahead of Coppens, who claimed second. Bollet finished third and is fourth in the title.
Yeah, my start was not so bad, but I made a mistake in the second corner. I went very outside. And finally I came back in second pretty quick, but Gunnarsson was really fast at the beginning and I couldn't really follow him, and so I decided to slow down a little bit and wait, and finally got tired and I was able to get the lead.
In the 125s, KTM teammates Steve Ramon of Belgium on bike 2 and New Zealander Ben Townley scrapped for the lead. Alessandro Puzzar was a lonely third, but Townley took his first win of the season. Puzzar is 3 points down on title leader Michael Maschio, who was fourth. And now for something completely different. The arrival of the world's biggest Matchbox car jump-started the Classic Toys 50th birthday celebrations. Fans of the miniature cars braved a typical British summer's day to celebrate at London's toy department store, Hamleys. More than 3 billion tiny die-cast vehicles have been made since 1952. The company may now be part of the massive US toy giant Mattel, but it began life as something thoroughly British. David Tilley from the Matchbox International Collectors Association explains the attraction.
I think it's the solid build of the Matchbox models. It's a well-respected mark. I mean, you say the name toy car to anybody, most people will automatically think Matchbox. They're just a very well-known make, and they've been going so long as well.
This is one of the original series road rollers, which cost just a few pennies new. They're still cheap, but their value climbs quickly. This Matchbox auction at the toy store held by London auctioneers Bonhams might be just a bit of fun for charity, but as auctioneer Lee Gotch explains, wheeling and dealing in Matchbox cars is a growing business.
As time goes on, then they become more and more desirable and they become rarer. I'm finding at the moment that Matchbox toys that were produced in the 1970s are starting to achieve pretty good prices, whereas maybe 5 years ago they were relatively cheap.
Collecting Matchbox cars is lucrative, with top prices of £2,000 or £3,000 sterling for good quality originals still in their boxes. Little toys for little boys no more, it seems. We'll end on that small but valuable note. But so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.